Holly Sparrow, welcome to Rethymno. It's a beautiful Sunday afternoon. We've been spending a lot of time with our friends getting caught back up and doing a lot of relaxing, some good eating, some more relaxing, and a little bit of processing of other videos from the trip since we've got great Wi-Fi for the first time in over a week. Beautiful church here on a little town square park. The remains of a minaret now under restoration from Crete's Ottoman past, and there's another one that is fully restored as part of a museum and an event space. I don't know what this sculpture is here, but what I think we're going to do is walk into the old city of Rethymno, and it looks a lot like the Plaka of Athens or other areas that are tourist oriented, but it definitely has its own flavor. So right now we're outside of the old city walls, and we're about to cross through a gate at this street up here on the right. And it's just a beautiful day, as you can see in the background. Fully fed and watered on my account, and here we go. So as we pass through the gate, the crowds are a little bit less than when we came through here before, which makes it perfect to show you as much as we can. Now, we do have a big Greek holiday coming up on Tuesday, the Dormition of Mary. And a lot of people have come into town. In fact, this is why I understand so many people were on the ferry the other night and have been coming into Crete in general, Rethymno and Kanya specifically. But a warren of streets, some emptier than others, depending on the kinds of stores that they have. Very pretty, very different styles of architecture through here. And what I've been told from a guy who grew up here is to look for the differences and the contrasts between this district in Rethymno and that in Kanya. Again, a lot of these local type businesses, as opposed to the businesses oriented towards the tourist trade, are closed. People are on vacation all week, some of them for 2 weeks, for the religious holiday, which is one of the largest in Greece. And who can argue with that? Perfect time for a summer vacation. Lots of choices as to where we can go. We'll go towards the light. And there is that event center and mosque restored. Former mosque, now event center. And just for an idea of where we are, we started right there at that square, and we've come down this avenue. So we just chose that fork, and we're just going to keep walking around. But If you'd like, keep that map inside your head, and eventually we're going to end up at the Venetian fortress there. Traditional Greek fare, lots of seafood. We just ate at a place called the Lemon Garden, had an incredible meal. So the food here has been really good. We were at a restaurant yesterday south of Rethymno, on the road to the beach on the south side of the island. And again, terrific food. So you will not go hungry on Crete and in Rethymno specifically. Prices are generally very reasonable. Though it is a tourist area, and if you want something that's tourist related, you may have to pay more or not get what you want. But you can always negotiate. Here we have the remnants of a Venetian fountain, very popular for photography, integrated into this little house. Probably some walls are also from that period. Very densely packed with tourism. People from a lot of different countries and all walks of life are here, irrespective of the Greek holiday.
Yeah, and I was forced to eat it.
The Ministry of Culture museum shop, what appears to be a Venetian structure. Indeed, the Loggia, which is one of the city's most important public buildings during that period, erected in the mid-16th century, rebuilt 1597. And it was a mosque during the Ottoman period, starting in 1646. It's a rich history to this still very functional structure. A city that surprises many who come to it, including me. My friends live on a hill in a village just outside of town. And we've been here for lunch once before in a restaurant just sort of on the outskirts of town. And I thought, well, I'm sure it's a nice place. Rethymno is the third largest city in Crete after Heraklion and Kanya. And we're out here actually at what I believe is the port. A ferry comes in here from Santorini about twice a week. And what we have here is the lighthouse at the historic port. So real interesting history here concerning the Venetian harbor. It existed long before the arrival of the Venetians. It was Byzantine, it was Ottoman. Lots of history here at the port of Rethymno, and specifically this Venetian harbor, as it is now known. A lot of commerce as well with North Africa and Asia Minor. A lot of these old buildings still find use today and are complemented by a lot of newer construction, as in so many other places, but beautifully done. Not a tour bus, but a tour train traveling by road And we're just inside of the coastal fortifications, the new ones in the distance, and the old wall ends here around the customs house. So we're going to take a little back street and just continue to wander in the direction of the fortress. It's these little forgotten streets that I like the most. Not the ones covered up with tourists, but the ones that are more about local life and everyday life here, unrelated, at least in part, to tourism. So here we have, of all things, a small Catholic church that was part of a monastery started by the Spanish for sailors, including Italians, who passed through the port of Rethymno. Very interesting Capuchin order monastery on Crete. We're coming back into what they call the Old Town Zone, but we're also not too far away from the fortress, so I think we're going to go towards it. And we find ourselves again in the Old Town Zone, so I guess we always were. The cicadas are very active. Our lunch was, we almost had to shout to be heard over the cicadas. It's just that time of year. And we're coming up on the fortress now. And actually a beautiful view of the residential district, a little bit of the old town, but generally the residential district of Rethymno, just between these two buildings. Let's see what we can see by walking up through here. So, by the Venetians, this was built from 1573 to 1590. Used only for defense in 1646 when the Ottomans took over this portion of Crete. And were used by the Ottomans for various purposes, as shown there. What appears to be a gift store. And the inner grounds. Well, greetings from inside the Venetian fortress for just €4. We got inside and are touring around well inside her walls, the Sea of Crete to our north, and various structures all throughout this complex. The cicadas are not letting up, so apologies if that is part of the audio and is painful. It is not very pleasant here today either in that respect. This is a massive fortress complex through here, and I'm just kind of going over land as there are not that many paths, particularly that are not terribly crowded. We are coming down past these structures here. And it's a pretty high state of preservation. for a 16th century Venetian fortress. Obviously there's been restoration work done, and the Ottomans also used this fortress beyond the 1646 defeat of the Venetians by the Ottoman Empire. A pretty little chapel, evidently reconstructed in 1985 as part of the restoration of this complex. A path. And what at one time must have been a mosque, given the remains of the minaret down here and the domed roof, probably built by the Venetians for a different purpose. In this area, an event arena with some chairs and a makeshift stage set up. Very good restoration, very good preservation, evident through here, and what appears to be continuing excavations of structures that were covered up or not used or had been built over. Complete with what may have been a water cistern. More than likely that's what this is. The cistern. We have just around this corner evidently excavated cannons, and quite a number of them, from the outer walls in various states of preservation and probably various vintages of manufacture, given that they're all a little bit different, regardless of the amount of rust from being underground maybe for hundreds of years. But quite a good collection here. Maybe Ottoman and maybe Venetian as well. One wonders what all this looked like at one time, whether it was smaller buildings, houses, structures, even a small town within these walls, since Rethymno itself was within a different set of walls of the same period. But there certainly appears to have been more than just raw stone and rock within here over time. The area used both by the Venetians as by the Ottomans, and maybe even by the conquering Greeks, who have held Crete since. More incredible views inside the walls at the corner southwestern corner of the fortress. A little gun position inside this dome. Looking down close to where we parked, just below. Rethymno and the old city to the left, just before the water. But the newer part of town here, and then out in the distance, the residential districts, the highway bridge headed to Kanya and Heraklion, and then the villages farther to the west. As I said before, this is an incredibly large fortress. This was not a small port, it's not a small island, and this is not a small fortress. One could do a great amount of walking through here. I have. And a shortcut down. The Cavalier of St. Lucas. Evidently restoration work ongoing on that structure as well. And we're now down below the Cavalier. And now at the southeastern corner of the fortress, having come back out of it, the cicadas were a bit much. I almost got a headache. They were so loud in certain places in the fortress. Rather an amazing place. We'll have to revisit it next time we're in Rethymno. I think Rethymno is another one of those places where I have got to come back to. I haven't seen enough. Certainly it would be hard to see enough of all of Crete in just a few days. Though we're lucky, I've been to Heraklion a number of times. I have not spent a lot of time in Kanya other than to get off the ferry the other evening. So we're coming back into the old part of town. We have a fixer-upper just ahead if you want to move to the old part of town. It looks like it might take just a touch of work to do. Start with cutting the trees down in the living room. You'll be doing good. And we'll just continue to wander and explore. This is a street that I was told because my friend's mother lived here, grew up here on this street, and I'm going to tell you what it's called. It's long and narrow, and that's what they call it. They call it the Long and Narrow Street. If you call it by its given name, Foca, nobody would recognize it. But she was at number 18, so we're at this end and we're headed all the way down to the other end, which will take us back out to that square where we started. And we're generally in the western part of the old town of Rethymno. And I believe this is where we started walking down it. in this square here with the very pretty church. And we've been that way already, so let's stay down long and narrow. The given name and by the way, a former Turkish bath in this hotel, which is now what it is, a hotel and not a Turkish bath. And a little pictorial explanation of that building in its original form. Boutique hotel. The remains here of an Ottoman fountain in the wall. Now, Makri Steno is what this road is known as, long, narrow, or Makri Ke Steno, long and narrow. According to my friend who grew up here and whose family is from here, if you gave the street's actual name, they wouldn't know what you were talking about. It is long and it is narrow. Slightly less long and no less narrow side streets. But it's always fun to have a little bit of personal history and local history when you're in a strange new place like this. And my friend, who I've known for many years, his mother grew up here and his aunt lived here as lately as maybe 20 years ago. It's a rather nice house. I'm sitting in the inside. It has a very large courtyard just behind that door, which is evidenced by this area where light comes in. And then external stairs to the internal house going up to the upper rooms. It's very interesting. And as he said, when he was a boy, they lived in an apartment, not here, but just outside the city walls, which we're just transiting out of as we go through this passageway. And now we're outside of the old city wall. And the buildings are newer. And in one of these apartments, he grew up as a boy, and he said it was a great place to grow up because this park over here was there, and his family was just behind and around them here in Rethymno. And now for one last look at the fortress and that surrounding area from inside the regular part of the town of Rethymno. We're kind of looking at the southwestern corner of the fortress and of the old town, but we're down at the seaside. Beyond that small plant is a great little beach. And above it on the hill, the residential districts and villages that make up the immediate suburbs of Rethymno. And one of those houses up there belongs to a good friend of mine where we've been very happy to stay for a few days and recharge our batteries. So from the seaside here in Rethymno, I just wanted to say thanks for watching Travel with Chip. This is kind of a light-duty vacation sort of day for me here. I've enjoyed bringing Rethymno to you. Please subscribe and share. Appreciate all your support. And tomorrow we're going to go over to Kanya and adventure around Kanya, and then get back on the night ferry to Athens. Until then.